Hello and welcome to The Router, the official podcast of the UQ Computing Society, where we explore the human side of tech. I'm your host, Olivia, and on this week's episode, we'll be talking to Jono about their experience at Atlassian as a product manager. All right, so just tell me a little bit about yourself, Jono.
My name is Jono. I'm a product manager at Atlassian. I've been at Atlassian for about 3 and a bit years now. I was originally from Brisbane, so a UQ student. I moved to Atlassian to start working in kind of early 2017. And my current role is I PM what's called the cloud editor. So we are building a editing component that we are rolling out across all of our cloud products over time. The big consumers of it at the moment are Confluence and Jira. And the underlying goal is to create this familiar editing, like content creation and consumption experience across all of our products. So it's been a fun journey. I took over the editor. It was one team of about 12 people early February last year, or March last year. And we're now at 40 plus engineers. There's 4 teams now. I PM 2 of them. And yeah, it's been quite a steep learning curve. It's an insanely technically complex component with just so many dependencies. So it's been a really fun journey. And yeah, I came through their Atlassian's grad program, which I can talk about later if you want. And then prior to that, I didn't study a technical degree. I kind of wish I did in hindsight. But I didn't spend I studied like a business and commerce dual. Didn't do a lot of work at uni, but spent a lot of time working outside. So I worked at companies like Red Hat, and then my final year at uni, I worked full-time at Microsoft running their innovation center, where I basically looked after how Microsoft engaged and supported the startup ecosystem in Queensland, which was a pretty fun experience. But yeah, that's my TLDR. It's not too exciting.
I think it's very cool. I feel like you've worked at like in a lot of very like impactful roles, I feel like, throughout your time, like from like handling startups with Microsoft, and then like now like managing 2 teams at Atlassian. I think it's very cool.
Oh, thank you.
Don't sell yourself too short there. So I guess you started studying business and commerce. How did you kind of switch over to the more, I guess, like to work for more tech-related companies? Or what kind of prompted you to do that as well?
Good question. So I actually wanted to do medicine initially. I have a lot of family members who work in the medical industry. And I grew up, my dad used to spend most of the year away in a third world country called the Solomon Islands. So I lived there for a bit, and their like health system was, I don't know if I'm meant to swear on this podcast, but it was pretty fucked. It still is pretty fucked. So that I was really passionate about wanting to go into medicine, and I got, back when we had OPs, I got an OP3, which wasn't good enough to get into med. And I was really fortunate at the time. A lot of my friends who didn't get into med, they kept going and tried to go through the whole grad process through uni. But like throughout my childhood, throughout my schooling years, I was just really interested in technology. I just thought it was super cool. And I decided to then pursue I started with a business and law degree because I didn't want to just do business. I never wanted to be a lawyer, as much as I love my dad, who is one. I was like, that is not for me. I switched courses a bunch of times. Um, and yeah, like I said, I didn't really spend a lot of time at uni, but it was a good function for me to be able to discover things that I liked. So I think the best thing for me and what made me realize I love tech was I just tried a heap of things when I was at uni. I worked a bunch of different jobs. I did things that were just fun to me. So I worked as a personal trainer part time because it was good money, and I used to play a lot of competitive sport. I worked at Merlot, selling coffee beans. And then I just did a heap of different internships. So at Red Hat, I was more on the marketing side. And I found that really cool. As an open source software company, the people there were just so passionate about the whole reason and ethos behind open source software. And that really piqued my interest because I hadn't ever been exposed or even knew what open source software was before that. All the way through to I ended up a very good friend of mine from school. He runs hardware teams over in Mountain View for Google, and we worked together on a startup with another person, and that was more on the technological side of things. And I think it was just I was kind of fortunate exposure to it, and I got introduced. I was fortunate to meet a bunch of people that had come through uh, the technology world working here and over in the States. And looking back to when I talk about my interest in say medicine and growing up being exposed to third world countries, another big realization I had when I was quite young was just our infrastructure and even though you could argue a lot of our government's technology sucks, it's still a lot better than other places. And a lot of the things that we have as a first world country with technology that is accessible really feeds into our ability to live a pretty wholesome life here. So I started to realize that there was something there, and the thing that I just found cool to read about was actually something that I could do as a job. And just spent more and more time in the technology space. And I think it got to a point where I didn't do a technical degree. So I wasn't totally sure where I could go in the technology space. And I realized, and I don't know if you're going to ask me where I moved to kind of the PM side of things, but I realized as I was researching different places that I could do internships at, when I was looking at Atlassian, a company that I really admired, I looked through all of their internships, and there was this thing called product management, was really the only thing that had some level of business slant to it. And I was like, don't know what this is, but sounds kind of cool. So I applied to it, and I'm really glad I did because it's been the perfect match of being able to apply technology and build solutions for people that have some level of impact in their life. Arguably, building a issue tracker may not be as impactful as doing eye surgery, but I think it enables people to build the tools that then allow people to do that sort of stuff. So inadvertently, it does have a huge impact on society. And yeah, I just slowly moved into. I was kind of fortunate that I landed in a role that was this mishmash of everything that I liked from all the random internships I did, and not much of the things I didn't like. And allowed me to work on really cool technology with really cool and smart, interesting people.
Well, that's very cool. I think it's a very good journey because it is you don't have to basically study tech to be involved in the tech side of things, and I feel like you're a perfect example of how you can still become really involved in tech if you're interested in it. So I guess kind of around your interest in tech, what technology has got you excited for the future, or would you be excited to work on?
Well, that's an interesting one. I feel so to an extent, the technology is exciting. So things I think if you can use and relate data in in certain ways, as you know, there's a huge amount of opportunity there, and like I don't want to throw around buzzwords like AI and ML, but there is like data is the modern day gold. It's just a matter of figuring out how to use it in a moral, secure, private way that like, it can greatly impact in a positive way people's lives and how they do work and just how they exist as a human being on a day to day. But equally, like anything, it's a tool, it's a resource, and people can use it in the wrong way, even if they don't mean to. Um, so it's kind of this fine balancing act of finding out how to take something that's so valuable and turn it into something that's equally valuable for the people that are giving it to you. Um, so that interests me. But I feel like the biggest thing where I find my interest in technology is kind of where the people come together with the technology. Like I'd say if I think about my day-to-day work and what the future holds for me, the thing that excites me is I have this like amazing group of people that are really passionate about different pieces of technology and different problems to solve. It's more the problems that excite me that technology enables. Um, so yeah, I would take kind of like a, I would potentially not answer your question, say, what excites me are the ability for us to continue solving problems in new and fun ways. And if I was to give an answer about what technology is interesting to me, I would definitely say understanding how to use data in a moral way to deliver value to people is kind of cool to me.
Yeah, for sure. So, kind of looking back then, what have you been really passionate to work on? What have been your past projects that you've really enjoyed?
Um, so I can give you kind of a journey of so at Atlassian when I came in, I started working on it was like a road mapping tool, which has turned into our like premium offering for Jira. So it basically allows teams to build out roadmaps. And that was like what I enjoyed about that was the people, less so maybe the problem space. And I'm sorry to to my manager and team at the time, but I really enjoyed the people. I was less passionate about maybe what we were shipping at the time, even though looking back now, it's really fucking cool. Then I moved briefly into the mobile space, which I found really interesting. I worked on I PM the Jira mobile apps across Android and iOS. Um, Again, that was I think what I found super interesting when I look back at my I'm still in my early years was more the learnings that I was having versus the actual work I was doing. Um, but I really love being able to work on mobile. It's such a like important piece of how people go about their day to day life. Um, the thing I'm most passionate about is what I'm on now. Um, I get really excited about stuff that I can like. For me to understand impact, I think I, to an extent, have to use it. And the editor, like the way that you create content in Confluence, the way that you read content uh, in Jira, etc., like is something that I used on a day-to-day basis. We were rolling out this new experience, and it was probably a little bit painful and we had quite a lot of improvement that was required. So I felt a bunch of that pain when I was in other teams, and I was like, I want to be on the other side of that. And it was super exciting for me to go in and work with people to solve some pretty gnarly problems. And then specifically, like feature wise, thing that's been super exciting, we have this concept of smart links, and basically there is a problem out there where like today there is an explosion of SaaS apps. So historically, there would be like people would buy kind of quite a uh, contained suite of tools. So they would buy, like, say, Microsoft tools, and then they'd use Excel for a heap of different things. They'd use it for charting, they'd use it for analytics, they'd use it for reporting, like all these different things. And now we're in a world where there are so many specialist SaaS apps. So all of those things I just mentioned that Excel could do, like, kind of well, there are apps that just specialize on one part of that. So like Amplitude is a tool that just does analytics and reporting really, really well. And because of that, like the benefit is we now have these amazing specialized tools to do specific parts of the journey of the work that we have to do. But it also creates a heap of context switching. So no longer are we in one or two apps to do all of our work. We're in 10, 20, 30 apps. And this just requires us to move between them. So SmartLinks basically is we're trying to solve the problem of how do we reduce the need to context switch. The first part of that has been we've built like services and common UI that enable us to pull in URL backed data from various providers around the web, like GitHub, like Dropbox, like Google, and then show them in our products in rich contextual ways. Everywhere from like a very small, this like inline view, which is simply like we pull in the favicon and the title metadata and then automatically resolve that for people, all the way down to a user can choose to like switch that view to a full embed. So they can then embed a design or embed an amplitude chart so people don't have to click out of a Confluence page to go view that. And that whole process has been, we've kind of gotten to this pretty amazing state recently where we invested a lot in building out the underlying architecture and services that power this thing. It's now gotten to a point where like one dev can spend half a day and build a new integration that then immediately works across Confluence, Jira, Trello, Bitbucket for like millions and millions of users. So as an example, we spent a week with 7 devs like 3 weeks ago, and we built 11 new integrations for full. So we added like support for Salesforce and Intercom and a lot of big providers that immediately worked across 4 of our products. And it took almost no time just because of the way that we architected it under the covers. And then that problem kind of extends to when you think about context switching, the whole idea of showing rich previews is interesting for consumers of the content. So as a reader, it means you don't have to then move outside of your context, outside of a Confluence page. But as a creator of that content, there's still this problem of trying to bring content into a page or into a Jira ticket from a third party. So we've been looking into and spiking, which I don't know if you know the concept of spiking. It's basically writing some hacky spaghetti code to figure out if something is viable or how we could build it and testing like technical assumptions. We've been working on trying to understand how we can create in-product search that allows you to search across all the products you interface with, whether they're inside Atlassian tools or say in Google. So as an example, a user in a Confluence page could be like, I need to bring in a Google Drive file and really easily just search it in Confluence and pull that in without having to leave their page. So that whole area of there's a shitload of apps now that people use in a cloud-first world, and we need to reduce the need to context switch is definitely the thing that is by far the most exciting for me at the moment. That was a massive brain dump, so I apologize. I hope you followed that.
No, yeah, that was good. It's very interesting to hear about how all the integrations kind of work, because I use Confluence a little bit at my work, and they do have a lot of integrations, that's for sure. Like you can pretty much add anything to it, which is very cool.
Yeah, this takes like a slightly different slant on that, which I won't go into, but I'm happy to discuss this at another time. Yeah, we're kind of trying to build in native features versus things that you have to go, and there's also a lot of friction in users having to find apps that they want to then integrate with Atlassian. We kind of build under the hood these integrations, so it just feels like this common native experience within our products. And you'll start, if you're using cloud, you'll start to see these roll out over time.
Very cool. So I guess like on kind of a different topic, more focusing on like, because you worked a lot during university, right? How did you find, I guess, your like university preparing you for work, or did you find that it was more like the experience that you got while you're at university, like from external things that really helped you?
Maybe if I did a different degree like comp sci, I'd have a different answer for you. But I would say I found the content of my course pretty pointless. Like you learn some like core concepts that are definitely valuable. At the end of the day, it was like a piece of paper that helped me get a job. What was valuable was the ability for like over an extended period of time with the student label on me, I was able to get a lot of experience and was allowed me to get the jobs that I have today. Like not ha- it, if I hadn't have gone to uni, I wouldn't know as much in terms of content that I learned at uni, but I probably wouldn't be that bad off. Um, but the difference is I just wouldn't have had the time and the ability to go and learn things outside of uni. I definitely learn by doing, and the things that I find the most valuable have really been things that I've learned outside the uni space. But I got really good. Like I've been very fortunate to have some awesome mentors over the years, and uh, one of the ones that I had in the very early days, he sits on boards of companies over in the Valley in the US, and he was like, "Man, so many people, especially students, I look at like Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates, and they're like, well, they dropped out of uni and then just created these amazing tech empires. But they're like the very, 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 very minute few. And it's not to say that you're not going to get there, but um, especially in the tech industry nowadays, there's just so much competition for jobs. And when he was in senior positions in large corporations, he was like, the first thing that a lot of the time they do, and this was a number of years ago, so it may change, like it probably changes to an extent today, but they will basically just look at the ones that have a degree and look at the ones that don't, and that's their first cut of who to continue looking at for jobs and who to not look at. So they just stick the ones that don't have a degree in a pile on the side and kind of forget about them. So he was like, it kind of sucks, but if anything, having that piece of paper helps. And I'd say that that still exists today, at least in Atlassian. So I'm one of the leads for our associate product management program, which is like our 2-year rotational PM program. And I've just been through the hiring process. I'm currently placing inside teams in Atlassian interns and grads that we've hired. And throughout that process, like we definitely look for ones that have degrees. So I think if I was to round that out, it really comes down to it sucks, but I don't think the world yet is at a place where unless you start something yourself, if you're looking for a job at a company like Atlassian, Google, etc., or in a smaller place, having something behind you, a piece of paper behind you to say that you've like committed to university is pretty crucial.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. I guess like on the topic of like you said you received like mentorship while you were at university, and that was like really valuable. How did you actually find those mentors, or how did you create those connections with people that supported you in your like learning and all of that stuff?
That's a good question. I think firstly, I was like lucky to be introduced to people just by people I knew. Like, I think there was a bit of coincidence there. Second part is I'm probably a bit of a dick. To be honest, like I have no issues. Like I don't really see hierarchy or have issues just going up to someone and asking them something. So I would, if I found someone interesting that I'd heard talk or even found someone interesting online, like I would literally just cold email them or cold message them on LinkedIn. And the thing that I learned that helped me the most is the fact that you're a student. Like people, no matter how senior they are or how busy they are, if you play the student card and you word a request in the right way, a lot of the time in like surprisingly a surprisingly large hit rate of people will agree to have a chat to you. Um, and like generally I literally had like a templated email where I would say like, hello, blah, 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 blah. I'd find out something about them and tell them that I was like super interested in what they were doing. And I'd talk about like something along the lines of how basically I'm kind of new to the whole world and I don't really know that much. And I'm really looking to learn from people that are leaders in the field that have been there, done that. And I asked them I have like a really specific ask of like, would you be, I know you're super busy, but would you be willing to have a quick like 30-minute chat so I can ask you some questions about blah, blah, blah. And then I always would say, I always try to offer them, well, I always show that I want to offer them something, but I don't really have anything to offer in return. So I'd generally have a line that was like, I'm not really sure what I can provide in return, but I hope that like what you teach me, I'll be able to pass on to someone in the future. And then I'll close it out. But yeah, if you really hit the things that I found most successful were play the student card really hard.
Mm.
Be really humble about you don't know shit. And really drive home the point that you want to learn from them. Because if you tell someone you respect them and you want to learn from them, that usually gives them the warm and fuzzies. And then you have to be genuine about it, that you want to offer them something in return, but you really can't. You don't know what you can offer, but you'll pass that on to other people. And I'd say like a lot of the people that are senior around the world have had help in the past. And the people you want advice for are people that aren't arrogant assholes, and generally those sort of people will give up their time to have a chat to you. So that was, I think it was to round out that question in my early morning Friday rambling ways, was I was fortunate in that I knew people that introduced me to people, and I was very like never be afraid to ask. If I knew someone that knew someone, I would just say, if you're comfortable, please introduce me. And then I'd also cold email people. And that worked really well. I've set up a speaker series at Atlassian now for our grads. And we've had everyone in from like co-founders of LinkedIn to heads of like VC, Google VC. They're like part of their venture capital arm. And it was really a mixture of trying to find people that they knew or literally just cold emailing them. So never be afraid to do that.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost a little bit similar with the podcast as well.
Yeah, so you're a great example of how to do this. I'm just not very senior or exciting, but it's the same concept.
Cool. Yeah, I guess like bringing it back to the work side of things. I think we'll move on a little bit to talk a bit more about like Atlassian itself, because I'm sure a lot of our listeners are pretty interested in a bit more what it's like to work at Atlassian and what the kind of like the culture is, and from a first-hand employee. So I guess how would you describe like the culture in the workplace at Atlassian?
Culture and just like the general day-to-day. This is going to sound super cliche, but I would say that Atlassian, like I've worked at a lot of places that I'd love, and I would recommend people work for Red Hat at the drop of a hat. Microsoft was amazing, but they were amazing in like quite a corporate way. Like for big enterprises, they were just good people that we worked with. I'd say like Atlassian is quite different in that the culture and the values that you see, like we have values of like open company, no bullshit, play as a team, except like seek first to understand all these things. Really is kind of lived by, to the point where we have a really strong blogging or just like open collaboration culture. So you will write a page and people from everywhere would start commenting on it and like providing advice or feedback. And then we have people will blog about every part of their life, from like having massive depressive episodes to their experiences being trans, to they're having a baby, to they're taking time off for some reason, to like a big company announcement. And people are just super open and super supportive of each other. And are also happy to like, you can have, we call them flame wars. You can have some serious flame wars on Confluence, which doesn't put you at risk of getting let go or getting into trouble. But people really go at it, and it's awesome because it's quite an open, safe culture where you can just say it how you see it and disagree with someone. And a recent blog is actually really good when we talk about like kind of inclusiveness. There was a blog that one of our LGBTIQ members of our Atlassian community shared about, like, this is the first job. I read it yesterday. It's the first job where they felt comfortable like coming to work and being themselves, to the point where like one day they just rocked up to work in these really quite eccentric, tight, small pride pants. And he was in a lift with Scott, and Scott just turned to him and was like, "You look fabulous." And I think that like kind of epitomizes our culture of, you can be who you are, you can say what you think, and obviously like there's a line there. You don't want to be an asshole. But it is a very open culture of sharing. I'd say the other thing that like I really love is it's a super flat hierarchy. So like Microsoft, there's a very obvious hierarchy.
Mm.
At Atlassian, there is an obvious hierarchy, like Scott and Mike are the founders, and there's VPs, etc. But you can talk to any of them. Like as a grad, I like was presenting and in rooms with Scott and Mike and having like sparring, which is kind of like our feedback sessions with them. So there's this super like, you are just viewed as an employee like everyone else, and sure, you have a title, but you get responsibility, and like what you have to say is important. So that's a super cool part of it. And then the last thing that I think, like, I've been very fortunate where the person that hired me to Atlassian is one of my best friends in Sydney now. So my first team that I landed in, my closest friends in Sydney. I lived with one of them for 18 months before I moved in with my girlfriend. Our whole team, like the OG team, just spent 2 weeks working from Byron. Literally, we came back a week ago. So I'd say like the connections that you build, and I don't know how to articulate this, but the friendships you can organically build at Atlassian, just given the environment that Atlassian seems to create. I don't know how it happens, but it just does. Really leads to like quite fruitful relationships. And then there's all the other things, like they treat you so well. You get compensated exceedingly well. You get, and we're very fortunate in that extent, you get really great benefits. Like when we were in the office, we'd get food and like amazing parties literally all the time. They would just go out of their way to make our life amazing. But now that we're home, they've gone out of their way to make our life amazing here. They've given us like pretty significant budgets to set up our home. They're constantly, like, we're now allowed to work anywhere in the world. They just announced that moving forward, even after COVID. And they've been very open about, like, they're trying to figure out how to do this remote work anywhere in the world thing long term really well. So like what benefits they give us, how we actually do work, like what devices they need to give us. And they have an open page where they have like all the decisions they haven't made that they need to, everything from like how they compensate us to blah, 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 blah. And as they make the decisions and like they're thinking on those decisions, they just appear on that page and they're super open about it. So I'd say like they really go out of their way, like, unbelievably so, to look after you. And there's teething problems. There's like anything, especially we're a company that's just exploded and continues to grow at just an absurd pace in terms of number of employees. We're figuring out how to get bigger as a company whilst not losing our touch with our culture. So yeah, it's not like always sunshine, like rainbows and lollipops, but it's pretty fucking awesome. And I'm the sort of person that will call it how I see it. So if I didn't think so, you'd be the first to know. I feel very fortunate that I get to work here.
Yeah, that definitely sounds pretty awesome. It seems like a very free and easy environment, and it's really good that they're looking to have it so that you can work from anywhere in the world in future. I think that'll be really enticing to a lot of students who maybe want to try and live in another country or something like that after they graduate, and
Totally.
have completely have the option there. I guess within the freedom, there's obviously many different roles at Atlassian. Is it very flexible to move teams and kind of look at work on different projects?
Yeah, moving teams definitely. I mean, there's an internal by law, and to be fair, we have to advertise any job that we have both externally and internally. And you still have to go through a interview process internally. But it honestly depends job to job. So design and engineering, I know heaps of people that have moved a bunch of times between different teams and different projects. And even within your team, you will inherently move amongst teams are quite, when you think about a team, it's not just a team of 10 and your direct team of 10 engineers, it's kind of the broader org that you're within. So you can move around. And that comes down to kind of intricacies of how you do headcount. So a org will get funding for someone so they can kind of move quite easily in between within their org. But as a PM, we have a defined program, which is 2 years, where we rotate you. You do 2 1-year placements. And that's to get experience across multiple projects, across multiple teams. So not Microsoft, Google started this with Marissa Meyer. She was the one that created this concept of an APM program. And a lot of their APMs now are VPs. And their program was you get mentorship, you get I think they do 1-year rotations. I don't totally remember. And then you do a 2-week research trip where you go all around the world. So ours is basically the same as that, where we have 2 1-year rotations. We give you mentors. We're working on really cool traineeship for you. So we had the National Acting Academy, and the guy that trained Hugh Jackman came in and did, when I was in the program, did a course on how to present with impact. We do all kinds of different things there. We had a really epic 2-week trip that was going to take, was going to chaperone, but it was going to take our current APMs. We were first going to go to Vegas. So we were going to LA, and we had lined up to go to the SpaceX factory and get a tour around there because they're big customers of ours. Basically, all of our tools we use to launch, to do all the recent launches with SpaceX. Then we were going out to our global summit, our yearly conference in Vegas together. Then we were flying across to Europe, and we were going, where were we going? We were going somewhere in Germany. I think we were going to Berlin or Munich. Then we were going across to Paris, and then we were going across to the UK. And we had lined up all of these customer interviews and also culture trips just to understand the culture of the country we're in. So doing fun things like cruises down the Seine in Paris and going to boulangeries and understanding the day-to-day life there. So there's definitely I'm trying to sell the PM program, to be honest, now that I think about what I'm saying. There's definitely, depends what program you're in. Eng and design have less specific programs, but you definitely can move. PM, we have a specific program as a grad that you come into where part of it is you 100% move. And teams are scrambling to get APMs. Like there's a really strong brand as APMs, so it's like the future leaders. So I've just put out an ask. We're trying to place interns, which I've just done. I put out an ask for people that wanted it, and I just got so many projects. I have 8 interns coming in, and we got significantly more asks for them. So we really provide like the pick of the litter of projects to put them in, and they get some level of preference. Hope that answered your question in a very roundabout way.
Yeah, and also I guess spoke a little bit about the graduate program too, which I think is quite good. So the graduate program is like you work on 2 different projects for 1 year each, and then you have a bit of a 2-week trip at the end.
In the middle, 2-week trips
in the middle.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Which is very different now with COVID, and we're trying to understand like, can we do it was going to be all the APMs from the US and Australia. Now we're like, can we do a domestic trip? We're trying to figure out what we can do now so that people don't lose that experience, given our current scenario.
Yeah, it is a bit unfortunate, but also unfortunately out of the control. So have you found, I guess, the switch to work from home all right?
Surprisingly so, like very much so. I'm the sort of person that works better by being with people and being able to just drop by someone's desk and talk to them versus on like Slack. So when I heard we were working, I remember the day they were like, we got an email being like, we have a suspected contact in with a COVID case in Atlassian, and like literally just the middle of the day, everyone was like, get out of the office now. So we like packed up and just never went back. Which is kind of crazy when I look back at it. And at that time, when that happened, I was like, fuck this. This is the worst thing ever. And I have loved working at home. I like totally go back on my word and my thoughts back in the day. I am significantly more productive. I can roll out of bed or go to the gym and do exercise and like be at my desk 5 minutes after I wake up, like I am ashamed to admit I did this morning for this interview. And yeah, I'm just like a ton more productive at home. I definitely miss the interaction. So when they do open the offices up, I'll probably go in for like once a week or so. But they've really provided us with everything that we need, to the point where we can now, like, they're trying to get us Aeron chairs to send out to our homes so we can be even more comfortable. But yeah, I think everyone's adapted. We were kind of already ahead of the curve in remote work and like just working as distributed teams. So to me, I honestly haven't, like, I'm fortunate in that, not fortunate that I don't have a kid, but I'm in a fortunate position where I don't have anything that can really distract me at home. Versus I think it's probably tougher, especially now that schools are closed in certain areas. For people that have kids, they have to like homeschool their kid. But when that's no longer the case, I assume that the experience will be very similar to mine, which is a lot more productive, has not changed my ability to interact or engage or feel connected to my team. So yeah, I love it.
Is there any last thing you'd like to add or any last advice you'd like to give before we wrap up?
You should totally all come and work with me. We'd love to have you. No, I think my biggest advice, if I look back, and the advice I always give is you're in a really fortunate position as students that you can try a lot of things. So literally try as many things as you possibly can, as many jobs, as roles as you possibly can. And the benefit of doing that is, and the benefit that I found was, I found like the times that I loved the internships I did or the like random work that I did was great. But the most valuable was when I found the things that I didn't like, because that allowed me very early on in my career to kind of hone where I thought I wanted to go and what I found was interesting to me. So be really open to opportunities. My girlfriend's a complete opposite, where she's very focused on, like, she knows exactly where she wants to go. I was like, don't really know what's going on. I kind of directionally knew what I wanted to do and the industry I wanted to be in, but I just took opportunities as they came. So I'd say my advice, depending on who you are as a person, is potentially do the same thing. You'll be surprised where it takes you. Um, and yeah, you're only a student once. Like, play that card as much as possible. People are always willing to help students.
Yeah.
And then again, come and work at Atlassian. Would love to.
Good. Fantastic sales pitch for Atlassian as well.
Specifically, technical people. We really like technical PMs are amazing. I have a lot of devs that interviewed at Atlassian and could have been devs at Atlassian. And we were like, you also have a really amazing product mind. Like, you think strategically, you think about the customer, come and be a PM. And they decided to take the PM path instead. So, like, computing students, comp sci students, 100% who we're looking for as PMs. So apply.
That's all we have for today. Hope you learned a little bit more about Atlassian and the side of technology that is product management. Please join us again in 2 weeks from now for our next episode. Until then, come join our community at slack.uqcs.org.